32 teams in 32 days. This is episode number 12, the Philadelphia Eagles episode. Let's welcome in Conor Myles, Eagles reporter and insider for Sports Illustrated. Conor, what's going on?
Jake, thanks for having me on the show, man. I greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to talking birds with you, man.
Yeah, and I can see the background. Obviously, diehard Eagles fan. Pretty much a dream job for you, I guess. And you got the Vic, the Dawkins, the Jenkins. All right. So let's start with this. Two huge moves to talk about. We'll start with Carson Wentz. Gets shipped off to Indy. They get their quarterback. Eagles moved off of theirs. What do you think, or what did you think of the sweepstakes for him, the market he had, and the direction that the Eagles kind of went with this?
I mean, his contract was just not favorable, especially with what he showed. He was arguably one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year, and it's not even the case. Uh, you know, things fell apart in Philadelphia. It was a broken offense. Doug Peterson couldn't call a game to save his life on the offensive side of the ball. It just made sense for the Eagles to move on because everything was broken, and it was, Carson didn't want to come back. He wanted out of Philadelphia. He wouldn't come back to the team even if they hired Frank Reich to be head coach. He was so he mentally just needed to leave Philadelphia. So it was really what's best for both sides. I thought for the terms of value, I mean, if he plays 12 games for the Colts next year, they get a first round pick. So they got a first and third out of a quarterback who arguably might not be the same again. Who knows? Because, this is him playing after he came off a serious concussion, Jake. So it's not like it's cut and dry that he's going to be fixed by going to Indianapolis, getting out of Philadelphia. Now, the only thing really benefiting him is he gets Frank Reich back. I think Frank Reich is really going to be the center to fixing Carson Wentz. Strong offensive line. I know he had one in Philadelphia. I think a lot of more of his sacks were more of his fault than it was the offensive line's fault, but still very strong offensive line. T.Y. Hilton, that's something that he didn't have with the Eagles at all, not even close. So, you know, it's a good situation for him in Indianapolis. And I mean, I think the trade made a ton of sense for both sides. I think the Eagles made the right decision to move on from Carson Wentz because I just don't think there was any way to fix their relationship, regardless if they brought in a new head coach like they did with Nick Sirianni. He just was too far gone. The GM and the quarterback didn't trust the GM anymore. And once you get there, the relationship's over.
Yeah, and let's move to Doug Peterson. So Doug Peterson gets let go, and if I would have told you 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years now, that at this time Wentz would be gone, Peterson would be gone, obviously, and Foles would be gone too. That's like would have been obviously crazy. So Peterson leaves. When did you get the sense during the season that okay, his time might be coming to an end, and were you surprised that they let him go? I believe a couple days after, I guess Black Monday is what people call it.
No, I mean, Jeffrey Lurie is an offensive owner. He wants to see a bunch of points put on the board. I mean, this is dating back in 2018 when the Eagles barely squeaked by the Bears, and it was really because of doink kick by Cody Parkey to win that playoff game. That's their last playoff win, and their offense was very uninspiring, and Jeffrey Lurie was not happy about it. He was very angry. Uh, I think what they did and why they didn't fire Doug right away and why the whole conception around there is like, why did they wait for so long to make this move is because there was an emotional attachment there. They won a Super Bowl with this guy. It wasn't like an easy fire. It wasn't like firing Adam Gase. It was firing your Super Bowl winning head coach for the first time in franchise history. But I think they just had to, besides the Howard Roseman problem, because they haven't really faced that problem yet, but they just had to realize, hey, maybe we overrated these guys a little bit. Maybe they did this stuff because of a collective effort. Maybe it really was a collective effort because ever since Frank Reich left, ever since John DeFilippo left, ever since the coaches started getting poached and they looked to Doug to build up a younger coaching staff to promote from within, and he hasn't been able to do it. And he arguably has taken the biggest regression other than Carson Wentz of the Philadelphia Eagles since winning the Super Bowl. So, the writing was on the wall. I think they were hoping that Doug would take a couple of weeks away, sit back and realize, to fix the Philadelphia Eagles, to be the head coach I want to be, to stay with this team, I have to take some reign back. I have to stop calling all the offensive plays. I have to let them hire an offensive coordinator. I had to get on board with that, and he wasn't willing to. He thought that they were making the wrong decision. He thought he can. I mean, when you win a Super Bowl, Eagles get inflated, and I think that's the Eagles' biggest problem is too many Eagles got inflated, and what they're trying to do right now is get rid of all the egos, and they got rid of Carson's ego, they got rid of Doug's ego, and they're just controlled by Howie's ego still.
Yeah, and it's funny because it gets talked about often about coaches' tenure, especially coaches who win the Super Bowl. Like Pete Carroll still hanging on to 2013. Sean Payton won a Super Bowl over a decade ago, and these coaches hang on to these Super Bowl wins because it matters. Like they have it. Obviously, not so much for Howie Roseman in Philadelphia, firing his head coach who just won him a Super Bowl 3-4 seasons ago. So maybe a sense of impatience or just unwilling or not being willing to wait for a potential rebuild. But what they do, they bring in a 39-year-old who served as the offensive coordinator under Frank Reich. And some would argue they hired the wrong Colts coordinator. But like you said, they do lean towards offense. That's exactly what they did with Nick Sirianni, getting him. He was the OC under Frank Reich last couple of years. Were you surprised they went with, one, a young guy, two, this type of offensive guy who might not be the best candidate on the board, but he's offensive?
I was a little surprised because I was told and I had solid information that I believed at the time it was gonna be Josh McDaniels. I mean, Howie Roseman was really all in on Josh McDaniels. It was Jeffrey Lurie who was saying, "Wait, let's go throughout the interview process," and he interviewed Nick Sirianni. And Nick Sirianni blew him away. And I think, you know, I'm not saying it's the right move. I'm not saying it's the wrong move because we're really not going to know until games are played and seasons are done until if Nick Sirianni was the right hire or not. But I think they're trying to recapture what Frank Reich brought to this team. I think they realize, when this offense was clicking, Frank Reich was helping Doug Peterson make the plays. They were balanced. They had a solid running game to complement the passing game. Ever since, they have not. It's fallen off the face of the earth. The rushing attack has been inconsistent. They haven't been able to establish any type of rhythm running the ball whatsoever. There's no balance. And I think they want to provide some type of balance to at least Jalen Hurts or whoever is the quarterback going forward if they do decide to go quarterback in the 2022 draft. Not the 2021 draft. Not going to happen.
Not the 2021 draft.
Not
You're
the 2021. But if they do decide to go quarterback 2022 draft, they're hoping that they at least provide him with, or Jalen Hurts. They're hoping they can provide him with a balanced offense because that's where they want to go moving forward. I think that's a huge influence of why they hired Nick Sirianni is because the Colts the last two seasons have been in the top 10, the top 5, being the most balanced offenses in the NFL. I really think they're just trying to recapture what Frank Reich brought to this team, and they thought who better to hire than his pupil, and that was it. I really thought it was going to be Josh McDaniels. I did think they wanted to have some guy that has more control, but brings in his own system, who's a proven play caller. Instead, they went with a guy who's never called plays before. So it could be hit or miss. I mean, we're questioning an owner who actually has made some pretty good hirings of head coaches as of late. Andy Reid, Chip Kelly had some success here, and Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. So, he deserves the benefit of the doubt for sure. And Andy Reid didn't call plays when they hired him either, and he was a young guy himself. So we'll see. Maybe this was the right move overall, but it was probably the most uninspiring hire of Philadelphia Eagles history, though, because nobody knows this guy. Nobody knew this guy. It wasn't Hakaman. It wasn't Eric Bieniemy. It wasn't Joe Brady. So I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, and the benefit of the doubt is the phrase that I would use because I remember 2016 after Peterson's first year, people were like, "This guy's terrible. He should be fired." ESPN, Bleacher Report, everyone graded the hiring when it first happened as like a D- or an F when they first hired Doug Peterson. But no, he won a Super Bowl in his second year. It was second year, right, as a head coach, or what? Second year as a head coach. So we'll see if Sirianni works, but they did make a huge trade a couple weeks ago, moving from 6 to 12, grabbing an extra first round pick next year. This seems as if this was a Jamar Chase isn't that valuable, or we might not even get him type of move. What were your thoughts on moving back 6 spots?
For the grand scheme of things, at least they're looking at the roster and being completely honest with themselves. And that's something the Eagles haven't been able to do as of late the last couple of years, is be honest with themselves. And they're not that good. They're not that good of a team. There's nobody on the offense you can look to and say this is a superstar right now, or really a stud playmaker outside of Miles Sanders. And Miles Sanders is still yet to be proven. So, for a team that really could have had a Kyle Pitts type player, generational talent, or Jamar Chase, or Devontae Smith and Jalen Wallace secured without any worry whatsoever. I mean, you're in a GM who has a horrible track record drafting in the first round outside of the top 10. When he's in the top 10, it's golden. When he's not, it's rough. So, I mean, it is going to – that's the challenge for Eagles fans. And I completely understand it, to be honest with you, because you're trusting a guy who has a really spotty track record. And you're saying to yourself, maybe he can get it right with a Jalen Rager, a Marcus Smith, so on and so forth. Andre Dillard hasn't even played out. That's what they're looking at next year because they're going to have 3 first-round picks. So where are those picks going to be? What if the Colts are really good? What if Carson Wentz bounces back with them and they go to the AFC Championship game or at least the divisional round? That's a pick in the late 20s. Howie's failed there multiple times. So it it is a worry. And then what if the Dolphins end up being good? I mean, the Dolphins look like they have a solid roster right now. So you would you rather risk those picks in the 20s over a guy like Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, one of the guys I mentioned? Or would you rather just take that guy, get that generational talent? I think it's more fair to be upset with it than it is to in grand scheme of things. But this is a team that really sat back and said we're not really that good at many positions. Let's acquire as many assets as we can to build this roster going forward, especially on the U side of the ball. So I can't be mad that they're stacking up picks because when you're looking at it on paper, that looks good. But when you really let the reality sink in of Howie Roseman's track record in the first round past the top 10 picks, that doesn't look good. So we'll see because he's not going to get fired anytime soon. It's not going to happen.
Right. So the Jalen Hurts experiment is often moving. He wasn't great, but when considering the circumstances, it definitely seemed as if he was the spark that Philly fans had wanted all year long. How are you doing with the whole Jalen Hurts experiment, starting with the actual drafting of him a year ago?
Well, I mean, we're all shocked as everybody. Not it wasn't just Eagles fans; it was the football world that was shocked that the Eagles took Jalen Hurts to pick 53. So, uh, the immediate reaction was, "What the hell? Like, why are they doing this? Like, this doesn't make sense at all." You just paid Carson Wentz. I understand you want to have a really good insurance policy behind him, but you can get that in the fourth round. You don't have to take that in the second round. You can develop a guy. You might not have worked out with guys in the past, but keep trying until it works. Don't take one with a premium pick. But now in hindsight, thank God they did. Because I would argue it showed them that Carson Wentz's true colors. They invested in the wrong quarterback. I think Carson Wentz is a fine quarterback. I still believe in him. Still think he could be a great talent. But he was just not the right fit for the Philadelphia Eagles. And now they had to find out that by challenging him, by bringing in a guy that he felt threatened by. So that's not how your franchise quarterback should conduct themselves. So, as much as at the beginning where we blame Carson Wentz, when we blame Howie Roseman, we blame the Eagles for making that pick, it showed you a lot about the quarterback that you thought you had, and he proved to be not the guy that you thought he was. So, in hindsight, it was the right pick. They did the right thing, and he might be their quarterback of the future. That's all that will matter at the end of the day. If Jalen Hurts can carve out a Dak Prescott type career, that's all the Eagles need. That's all they need a quarterback. I mean, this is a team that would win multiple games with Donovan McNabb, who never threw for 4,000 yards or over 32 touchdowns. They don't need a guy to be special like Eagles fans thought Carson Wentz was. I think that's the biggest struggle with most people is Carson showed like MVP potential. He showed like he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Jalen has not, and I don't know if Jalen ever will be that or show that what Carson has showed. I think that's what people are struggling to accept and moving on to Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts is a winner. Jalen Hurts was a Heisman runner-up. He went to Oklahoma, and that's when they really started to tap into his quarterback potential. So I don't even know if we know what Jalen Hurts can be. I think he's so far raw in his development. He deserves a chance. He deserves a chance to be a starting quarterback. I think he can be really good.
Yeah, and it gets talked about all the time. It's been talked about with a few guests so far on this podcast, the quarterback's succession plan, right? Obviously, it wasn't ideal to need a successor for Carson Wentz, 26 years old or 27, however old he is. But is Jalen Hurts that guy to be the succession plan? They certainly seem to want that. But like, where do the Eagles think they are in 2 years with the quarterback position?
I think they want Jalen Hurts to prove to them surprise them just the way he has been doing. And they're prepared if he does not surprise them. They're going to give him a chance. They're prime. They would not have moved down from 6 if they weren't going to give him a chance. So,
Yeah.
they were all in on him. I reported this for SI back in February, and I still believe it to be true this day. They went into that offseason and they let everybody step away because the new plan was we're not going to try with Carson. We're not going to try to make this work with Carson. It's over. We're done. We're ready to move on for Jalen because Jalen won that locker room over. He won that team over. Like they love Jalen Hurts. They loved him enough to take him at 53. It wasn't going to be that hard to win him over, and he did. So now it's just can he continue? Because you can't build you can't build around a quarterback after four game sample size, no
Right.
matter what, if they're picked to the first overall pick or the pick 53. Like, we need to see more, and that's what they're gonna ask to see. And hopefully he continues to surprise them, because if not, they're prepared with 3 first-round picks next year in 2022. I know nobody's really headlining that class right now to some people, but there's going to be some talent there. You know, it only takes a one Joe Burrow type season for some guy to pop off, and Zach Wilson is just doing the same right this year. He's enjoying the benefits of that because he had that one type season. So there's going to be quarterbacks in this class, and the Eagles will be prepared to take one. If not, if Jalen Hurts does surprise them and show them that, hey, you know, I could be that special type guy like Dak Prescott was, like Russell Wilson was, where you didn't expect anything from them, and they came out of nowhere and won your franchise over, then great, because they had 3 first-round picks to build around him, and that's what you need to build around a young quarterback. So I
It's
think it's very possible that Jalen Hurts could be the succession plan, though. I do think it's extremely possible.
Yeah, because I remember back in, I think, November or early December when he first took over for Carson Wentz, when Carson Wentz got benched, and he performed well. But long before that, the Eagles were like, Carson Wentz is playing really bad. They have this kid coming off the bench. Can he be a spark? Maybe. But Carson Wentz is playing so bad. That's the priority right now. We need to try to fix Carson Wentz. And 4 or 5 months later, they have what seems to be the guy that they want to be the future in Jalen Hurts. But if he doesn't work, a bunch of picks, a bunch of weapons in their arsenal to replace him if he doesn't work. But this year they have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. Of course, that extra third rounder from the Wentz trade this year. At what point are they going to get desperate for a receiver? They've taken the wrong one in each of the last 2 years. They know they want one. They know they need one. Now you release 2 of your best ones, Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. There's not much to that position right now, other than 6th rounder Travis Fulgham and Jalen Reagor, who could be good. At what point are they just going to get it right? Because this receiver class, very, very good. But at what point are they just going to get it right?
You know, I think a lot of the lack of wide receiver production falls on the blame of Doug Peterson more than it doesn't, because I don't think that he game plan schemed well enough for the receivers. And I think, especially for Jalen Rager's case, because, you know, people are going to, if people who know me that listen to this are going to be like, oh, he's defending Jalen Rager again because he knows him. It's nothing to do with that. It's that I know the exact situation. Like, they were pretty honest with me. He wasn't being coached to his full abilities. He wasn't being used to his full skill set. Now you hire Nick Sirianni, who he comes from being a wide receivers coach. That's where he specializes. Look, the Eagles' biggest 2 hires, it was going to be Nick Sirianni for head coach and Jonathan Gannon, defense coordinator. One specializes in wide receivers, where the Eagles have been struggling with years, and the others, Jonathan Gannon, he specializes in defensive backs, where also the Eagles have been struggling with years. So I think that's where they first focused on, and that's where you start improving the most. I think Nick Sirianni's going to put Joe and Reagor in a lot better positions to succeed than Doug Peterson did, because I don't think Doug Peterson really knew how to scheme for receivers, because, you know, they have JJ Arcega-Whiteside too, who was a 2nd-round pick, and he's been a complete bust for them. I don't think he's ever going to pan out. I just don't see it with him. There's no juice. There's nothing with him at all. At least you got to show us a little bit something, even if you're in a broken offense like Doug Peterson's. You got to show us something a little bit. So when I look at this receiver class, I'm looking at the Terrence Marshalls of the world, or I'm looking at Kadarius Toney, because I'm thinking the Eagles are going to go with a slot guy. I think they're going to give Fulgham chances to be their X. I know they want Rager to be their Z. Greg Ward is a security blanket, but he's not a starting caliber wide receiver. So they really need a creative and elusive slot that can create a bunch of space for this offense and work well in space. So I'm looking at the Kadarius Toneys. I'm looking at the Marshalls, the Terrence Marshalls of the world, and I'm thinking, you know, the Eagles are sitting at 37. Toney might be there at 37, but Marshall, they'll have to trade up in the first round big. And you just admitted yourself they have a ton of picks in the first 3 rounds. They can make a move. They can make a move and get one of those guys. So I don't know if they'll do it at 12. Jalen Waddle is there. I think he might be entertaining. I know it's maybe to some Eagles fans, it's unlikely they go wide receiver back to back in the first rounds, but they're looking at this whole entire team right now, and they're throwing their philosophies out the window, because they need talent all across the board, and they stacked up on picks to make sure that they can do something like that. So I don't think they care if they go wide receiver again back-to-back years in the first round, because guess what? Next year they have 3 first-round picks. They still have uh, a second round pick and 2 third-round picks to work with. They got picks, so I don't think they're going to look at positional value and think, we just did this last year, let's not do it again. So look for the Eagles in the back end of the first round to make a move up to get like a guy like a Terrence Marshall, or look for them even to move up from 37 to get Kadarius Toney at the beginning of the second round, because one of those guys I think is going to be an Eagle.
Right. At some point, it goes like you're at a crossroads, because if you stack up on a position in back-to-back years, you're overcorrecting your mistakes, and if those picks don't pan out, you have to keep overcorrecting yourself, and then you kind of forget the other positions. For the Eagles, it seems like corner is a position that's widely talked about. Some said that the Eagles were bound for a corner at 6. Now at 12, that seems like the sweet spot for a corner. They most likely are going to have their choice of at least 2 of the top 3. At least 2 of the 3 should be there, maybe even all 3 of them. Of course, we're talking about J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, and Caleb Farley. How surprised, if at all, if that's the thought process at number 12, 20 days before the draft?
I think that's the direction they're leaning in if I had to make a decision, because I'm looking at this team right now, and I'm looking at the decisions they've made so far this offseason. They secured Greg Ward, make sure that they had him at least. They add to the linebacking corps, which was the weakest unit on the team. They added the safety that they needed desperately in Anthony Harris. So the one position they haven't really addressed yet is corner. So I think that's what they're thinking. They want Monte Maddox probably to be the nickel in this new defense. They want Darius Slay to still be their number 1. They haven't addressed number 2. I don't know if they're going to do it in the free agency, because I think you can address the corner at 12 and ask him to be your quarterback 2 from day 1. And I think that's what the Eagles will do. And even if they don't do it at 12, they can do it at 37, because this is a deep, I don't want to say deep, I want to say top heavy cornerback class. So 37 is also a prime spot for Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes from Georgia. Newsome, if Northwestern, if he's there available, he might not be. I know he's also talked about that in the first round, but Asante Samuel Jr. There's some guys that you can get at 37 that they could still ask to come in and be day 1 starters. So I think that they're just in a sweet spot for corner, where either they don't get one in the first round or definitely get one in the second round. But either way, definitely see the Eagles take a corner in the first 2 rounds. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and there's you just started following me on Twitter, so you probably don't know this, but my Twitter account is a Greg Newsome fan club. I absolutely love that guy. If that guy's there in the second round, like I go back last year to Xavier McKinney when he fell. He was top 15 player on my board. Had a couple of injury issues, broke his foot in training camp, but I thought the Giants got a steal at pick 37. And if Greg Newsome's there, because the top 3 guys are going to go in the first round, Asante Samuel might. There's that kid from Syracuse, Melifonwu, guy from other guy from South Carolina, Israel. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but ton of guys in the corner class. Greg Newsome especially. That guy's a dog. But looking deeper in the draft, obviously the Eagles, they were only a few games out of the playoffs. What other position groups do you see them targeting at the end of the month down in Cleveland right now?
Still think they might still add the safety position. Running back, I don't think Jordan Howard be coming back singles. They won't go running back in the draft. I still think that's an option on the table for sure to complement Miles Sanders long term, because Jordan Howard was a disaster last year. I don't think he's a lock to make the team. Offensive line, Jordan Mailata was a shock last year. I think he might actually be the future left tackle of this team. But if not, you still need depth there. I know they have Andre Dillard as well, which who knows with him. I'm worried he might end up being a bust for them. They still need interior. They need Jason Kelsey's replacement. They need his heir. So they need Jason Kelsey to at least mentor his heir as well. So that's a huge need, is center in this draft for them. Tight end as well, because Zach Ertz is eventually going to be on the move. And Nick Sirianni and the Colts offense did use staples of the 12 personnel, not last year, but the 2 years prior, heavily. So I still think it's going to be a concept used in this Eagles offense. So they're going to need tight end as well. They're going to need quarterback. They're still going to need a quarterback, because Joe Flacco's not going to get the job done if he has to be the backup quarterback at some point this year. They're going to need somebody back there as well. So maybe KJ Costello, if they feel bold enough to go Davis Mills in the 3rd round, maybe that. I don't know. But, they're really not. Defensive end, too. Derek Barnett is coming on the last year of his rookie deal. Hasn't really proven himself worthy of a second contract yet. Josh Sweat's on the last year of his rookie deal. Brandon Graham's not getting any younger. There's a lot of needs on this team. It's not a good team right now if you look at it on paper, but it can be. It has potential. It has a lot of youth that needs to prove itself that we don't know about yet.
Right. So real quick, before I let you go, I ask everybody this. You're at 12. You're Howie Roseman. You're the GM. You're the brass. Who are you taking?
J.C. Horn. without question. If JC Horn is on the board at 12, you take him easily because I think, I make this comparison a lot. And I think a lot of people are like, well, they went to the same colleges. That's why you're comparing them. But I really think when you watch JC Horn and you compare his tape to Stephon Gilmore, it's nearly identical. I mean, thrives in press, which you really need to be great in press in the NFL as a corner. Regardless if you were in a zone dominant scheme, you have to be good at man. He is very well in man coverage, and I love him in zone as well. So, I really love that guy for this Eagles team, especially with a guy like Jonathan Gannon, who has such a strong background in building up defensive backs. Give him a guy like J.C. Horn to also be mentored by Darius Slay while he's still here. That's perfect for the Eagles to be their number one corner for the long term as well. So J.C. Horn would be the pick there at 12.
Yep, great stuff. And it's interesting because it doesn't get talked about that much. But if you need a corner, history shows you need to get one in the first round because if you look at
Yeah, I think
the the consensus top four corners, Gilmore, Alexander, White, and I'm forgetting the last one, but Alexander, Jerry Alexander, all those guys taken in the first round. There's a even looking at Denzel Ward taken fourth overall a couple years ago in Cleveland. It's not like receivers. It's not like offensive line where you can get a starter in the third or fourth round. There are times where good players fall because of injuries and they just overplay their eval, but it's rare. First round corner talents normally work. First round corner talents normally pan out, and the top guys are first round talents.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I wouldn't be surprised if J.C. Horn doesn't even make it to the 12, and the Eagles try to trade up and get him at 9.
Interesting,
Could happen.
but so that's if you're the GM. So if you're the GM, you obviously have Horn at number one, but it's crazy because these three guys at the top are so close. A lot of people have Surtain, a lot of people have Farley, although that's dropped because of his injury and not being able to test, which kind of sucks because Farley arguably has the best tape. But JC Horn, a stud, Patrick Surtain, a stud in the SEC, went up against Jamar Chase, all these great receivers, goes up against Smith and Waddle in practice every single day. But a ton of good corners at the top towards the middle. But great stuff from Conor. Conor, thanks for coming on, man.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Make sure to follow Conor at Conor Myles NFL on Twitter. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching to this episode of 32 Teams in 32 Days. I'll catch you in the next one.